Hello! Welcome to the Wednesday night, evening, daytime, wherever you are in the world modeling stream. It's Wednesday. It's almost Christmas. I'm feeling good. Yeah, it's starting to get cooler here in Hong Kong, so I'm not sweating all the time. So that's a good thing. Not sweating is a good thing. Um, so what are we gonna work on today? Once again, the palindrome dot. So we're done. Well, you're never really done. I've just decided that I am done with modeling at this point. With modeling this guy because that's the kind of the danger with not danger. It's one of the things about projects like this. You can just keep on noodling and noodling and noodling and noodling and never move forward. So I'm calling it, I'm cutting it right here. So what I did between the streams is I did a little bit, just a teensy bit of work. Oh, I didn't really have a lot of time. I never really have a lot of time. So mostly it was organization and fixing my character's pose. So if you remember last week, his feet were kind of touching one another right here. So I basically went back into my pivots and made him some new legs and kind of put that little IK system on there and just kind of stood him up and moved his feet out a little bit. The other thing I did for this guy is, so let's hide those again. And it also allowed me to test his hip movement, which I'm pretty happy with. It worked out pretty well. The other thing I did, which was very, very boring, beyond my UDIMs, let's do show, yeah, there we go. Beyond my my UDIMs here, I went in and I solidly named as much stuff as I could. We'll save that for later. So all this stuff, all of my geometry ends in SDM, that stands for subdivision mesh. If I'm going to be sending this into Unreal or a real-time engine, I wouldn't be subdividing this. But if I was doing this for a for traditional like visual effects animation rendering, I would be subdividing it. That's just habit for me. I just end my geometry in SDM. So yeah, so everything, if we open this up, everything has a name, everything ends in SDM, everything is has a number if there's more than one of it. So this A1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth. So just went through. I didn't think you guys wanted to watch me do that, so I just went through and did all that. And then the other thing I did is I just did a quick once over of my UVs just to make sure they're all working out. So just kind of went back over these. So if we look at everything, this is the UV layout that we had before. Now I have my shader view turned on here, so a couple of these I did flip. Okay, so I flipped these, and I think the only ones that are upside down is this purple one here. So if I do UV shells, and I did that because it's these little guys, and they can be exactly the same, and I'm not super worried about that. If you were working in a system where you had to have everything be unique and nothing could be backwards, this wouldn't be too big of a deal. I could just come into my, let's go to let's do faces and double click this. And then also my gasket over here. So I could just move this stuff off to the side if I wanted to. And I think I will do that. So these guys, I'm going to keep, actually I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to keep them in the same patch. I'll just make them unique. Why not? Why not? So I'm going to do UV shell. I'm going to grab all these guys. And so when you see things that are red, it means they're inside out. And that's because I flipped, or I mirrored all this stuff. So I'm going to do flip U, and that'll turn it blue. So now I'm just going to take these two guys. I'm going to take this and move it over here. So it's my mirrored thing. I'll bring this back. It's going good. It's going good, Pietro. Good to see you. Good to see you. And then I'll just bring this down a little bit. Like I said, never ends. It never, ever, ever ends. Could do this forever. And ever and ever and ever and ever. No, I think I'm going to leave this one. So I get a little bit less texture space overall, but these guys now have unique texture space. Okay, so that's that. Let me save this, because I made that change. I said I was done modeling, and then I immediately proceed to model stuff. Okay, so on to look dev. Now, some of you may be thinking, all right, he's gonna export everything, and he's gonna go over to Subsurface Painter, and he's gonna do a bunch of stuff. Wrong. Some people like to do this. Some people like to jump into Subsurface Painter really fast. If you haven't noticed, I like to plan stuff. I like to plan stuff as much as I can. And I like to work out just like kind of like rough, big, kind of large surfaces. I treat everything, not everything, I treat most CG work I do relatively the same, right? You start with big forms, right? Then you start to go to medium forms, and then you go to tertiary forms, and then you go to super fine detail. I do this the same thing. I treat my look development the same way. So in this session, hopefully, all I want to do is work out what my surfaces are going to be. Like what surface, what model is going to have what surface attached to it. And that's actually pretty hard, right? To go from just nothing. Like, I don't know what this guy is supposed to look like. Like, if you remember the artwork that I was working off this was just black. It was just black, a black silhouette with two little red eyes. So I know these guys need to be red. That's pretty much it. That's the only thing I know. So the most important thing that you can do as an artist, whether it be CG or otherwise, is gather reference. Because it's so much easier to gather reference than to just come up with something off the top of your head. And when you gather reference, and I mean real world reference. I remember when I taught at a couple college, I would say, hey, go get reference or whatever, or go get reference for whatever you're trying to make. And my students would come back and they would have amazing imagery, but it would be of anime shows and movies and video games and so this and that and the other. And I was like, that's not reference. That's inspiration, which is fine, but it's not reference. Reference is real world stuff, like a real tree, a real animal, a real plant, a real building, a real piece of metal. That's reference. Okay, you can look at all the images for inspiration all you want, but when you're gonna make something from scratch that you want to be yours, you need to collect real world reference as much as possible. Even for, fantastical things like magic and explosions and stuff. There are things that are in this world that look pretty magical, like electricity and plasma based like experiments that these like large hadron collider stuff. That stuff looks like fantasy, and it's built because it's in the real world. It has to work, right? It has to obey the laws of physics. It has to obey the laws of light to an extent. So, get real world reference. Along those lines, I was walking home the other day, and I walked past this mall, and there was this amazing crane thingy. I don't even know what it was called. It's like a lift. But it was this crane, and I was like, I really like the colors of this thing. I really like how it looks, because I don't know why, it just these circular bits kind of remind me of this thing. Kind of like these things kind of remind me of legs. I don't know why. It spoke to me. I don't know why. But it also had these great colors. It had this red to it. And then it also had kind of these kind of bare metal parts. So I just kind of walked around. I didn't even go inside. I was super lazy. I just took pictures of it from outside. But what you get out of these things is, look at this. Look. This is wonderful. This little bit of detail. We're not going to get into that today. Eventually we will. But, little things that, make things look cool. Look at this. This guy could be my little socks right here. Right? And, these rubber bits, I would assume that this guy's gonna have to bend, so that could be rubber, or these little gaskets could be rubber, like these little gaskets could be rubber. I mean, it seems really complicated, but really there's only 5 or 6 materials that make up this thing, right? There's this metal, which I'm pretty sure is this metal, like this. It's kind of like this black wiry stuff, which is probably going to go into here. There's this really bright, so there's only 2 bright colors. There's yellow and, well, quote unquote yellow and red, and that's it. Right, those are my 2 biggest, brightest colors, and red seems to be the predominant color, and then yellow is an accent. So I can also think about that. I can also flip this over. I can make yellow my predominant color and red my accent. And then all of these little parts are very gray and very kind of metallic and just kind of subdued. And furthermore, like, you get like, oh man, this is great. Like, this is wonderful for when we do get into this detailing phase. When you do like the chipping and things like that. And Substance Painter, this is the type of stuff that's going to make the texturing kind of tell a story. And there's one really cool piece. Where is it? I think it's here. Yeah, this piece. So there's rust here, but not here and not here. Right? That's because this thing, if it's in the rain, rain's gonna hit this thing. And it's going to drip, 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 drip. And it's going to sit right there. And it's going to make rust. Same thing here, right? This is kind of polished smooth here and here, but it's really scratched up here. It's because this cable rubs against this part and like makes this really rough. Okay? Same thing up here, right? This is really smooth and this is really rough because people touch this thing. So I see a lot of when people are using Substance tools and kind of like these automated tools, things are more or less, they're like evenly beat up. Like everything is beat up, like everything is rusty. There's just rust everywhere, and it doesn't really, the rust being at those places doesn't really make any sense, right? So think about where you're putting these details. The other thing is this is really nice, like this ripped kind of sticker thing here. Like, I see so many times people are like, all right, I'll put a sticker, and then they just put the sticker and they don't do anything to it. Like, look how much dirt is on this. Like, these little beat up speckles and these tears, all right? And then this here as well. Like, this is a great surface. So this is probably the best reference to what this surface is doing, kind of at these glancing angles. Yeah, here as well. So let's do this. Let's start to break this down and start to look at this. To start to put some materials on this. Now, before I do this, I want to set up just a simple, very simple look development scene. So I'm actually going to save this Cortex spot. So I'm going to say File, Save Scene As, and I'm going to save this actually in Data. And I'm going to call this Cortex Master Model. I'll just call it Master Geom. Okay, so that's saved off into my data, so I'm less likely to break it or beat it up. So I'm gonna do another save as, and we're gonna go back to our scenes, and I'll call this Cortex Look Dev. .000. Digital hygiene is important. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select all this guy. And actually, you know what? There's one more thing I'm going to do. There's one more thing I'm going to do before I do anything else. This guy here is teeny, 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 weeny, tiny. He is, because way back in the day, I spat him out of ZBrush, and I wasn't really caring about the size of things. But if I create a locator, this guy right now is 3 centimeters tall. So he's about that big. Now, when I get into lighting and look dev, I want my things to be real world size. Okay? This is very, very important, right? Because if I put a 60-watt light bulb next to a little G.I. Joe man, that's going to look very different than if I put a 60-watt light bulb next to my head. Even if I frame the camera, such that G.I. Joe man has the same size relative to the frame, that 60 watt light bulb is going to look like a nuclear blast on the side of his face. Whereas if I'm holding a 60 watt light bulb right here, it's, it'll illuminate my face like, like a 60 watt light bulb. So this really confused me when I first started lighting. I hated lighting when I first started it way back in uni because I wasn't aware that I was dealing with a light simulation, right? Especially now with with past racers like Arnold, Mantra, V-Ray, Octane, Renderman, they're all path tracers. They're all trying to simulate light. Okay, so we should respect that. So what I'm gonna do is, I don't want to get rid of that. So I'm trying to think of how tall I want this thing to be. Right. So I'm thinking about the design of the character. He's got a big brain, right? He's got a huge brain, which means he's probably like super smart. Like he's probably like really smart. Like, so think like MODOK from X-Men, or even like Mojo Jojo from the Powerpuff Girls, right? These characters are really smart, or even Professor X from the X-Men, right? Characters with big brains in general are not super powerful, right? And if the ultimate, like, now I'm thinking about it, the ultimate example of that is Bruce Banner and the Hulk, right? Bruce Banner, really skinny dude, super smart. Hulk, super powerful, super strong, really dumb, right? So I don't want this guy to be like huge. I think I want him to be about probably like maybe like 3 feet tall, maybe 4 feet tall, like the size of like a small child, or like a monkey or a chimp or something like that. So because he's got this huge brain, and he would have like henchmen, that hench bots or whatever, that would do his bidding for him. So he's like the schemer. Like he's not, and even look at him, he's super ill built, right? Like he's not a fighter at all, right? He can barely move. So that's what I'm gonna do. So let me ask, hey Siri, what is 3 feet in centimeters?
3 feet is 91.44 centimeters.
Okay, 90. Let's say it's 92. So yeah, he's really, like, he's so small. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna group all this stuff. So I'm gonna say Control G, and I'm just gonna scale this up until he hits that point there. So put this at about 30. Great. Okay, so I'm just gonna say Cortex. And so I have the scale here, so I have all this stuff in here. So I'm gonna unhide my pivots, and I'm just gonna freeze my transformations, freeze my scale transformations on everything. So modify, freeze transformations, and we're just gonna do scale. Okay. And don't worry about like this stuff. That's just a drawing error when we get a little bit farther away. If I did want to fix this, what I would need to do is I grab my camera, and I should get, let's go to attribute editor. Let's go to my near clip, far clip. What would that be? I haven't messed around with cameras in a while. Custom display. Where is my near clip, far clip? So you would change your, as soon as I figure out where it is. I haven't messed around with my cameras in a bit. I've been jumping around between too many different softwares. Where is it? Clip, 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 clip. Aperture, prescale, frustum, value. It's not depth of field. Output settings. Nope. Environment. Nope. Nope. Pan, zoom. It used to be in here. Oh, there it is. Near clip plane. So I usually just whack off one of those zeros, and bam, he goes back to being fine. That's a drawing error. Like your clipping plane, but your object is too far away from your it's too far away from your object. So near clipping plane, it's in camera attribute. Yes, camera attributes. Thank you. All right, cool. So that gets rid of, and it makes him look a little bit more solid. He was looking a little weirdly like jittery before. Cool. All right. So I'm gonna save this as again. I'm gonna save this. Save as. It's always like these little things that you need to fix before, and they're worth it. They're worth it. And generally, I like to do a. I usually have a what I call pre-flight list whenever I'm going to leave an application, right? So it's like do this, do that, do that, do that, do that. Make sure everything's ready before I send it away off to Houdini land or Substance Designer land or Substance Painter land or whatever. Okay, so now let's bring my reference back. No, I don't need my reference. So I want to make just like a basic lighting scene for this. So, and I'm going to be using Arnold. Now, a lot of students, and myself as well, so I'm basically exalting all the stuff that I wish I knew when I was a student. Renderers are like languages, okay? If you're going to speak to a render, you have to speak its language. And by saying that, by speaking its language, you're using its shaders. So if you're using Arnold, you should be using Arnold shaders. If you're using V-Ray, you should be using V-Ray shaders. If you're using Octane, you should be using Octane shaders. Even though they do pretty much the same thing, they're all written a little bit different. Okay? So I see students like trying to render an Arnold and they're using Maya shaders. So that's akin to, somebody Portuguese trying to speak to somebody who is Spanish, I guess. Right? Some of the words are the same. You can kind of understand the other person, but like the nuance is lost, right? Like they're close, but they're not. Like like Arnold is smart enough to do a conversion of a Maya shader into its own kind of internal language, but you're not going to get all the juice out of it that you want. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to select my entire robot and say right click and say assign new material. And I'm going to go to Arnold and I will do AI standard service. This is the Uber shader for Arnold. Okay, so this is basically shades. This shader can become any, quote unquote, can become any material. So I'm going to call this base shader, SDR. Okay, so this is my base shader. So I know eventually I'm going to replace all these parts with this base shader so that I have, I have something to work with. Okay, so the next thing is I want to add a backdrop to this so he's just not in, actually, you know what? I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that backdrop. I'll just give him something to stand on. So I'm going to do create, plane. Here, and scale this up. Drop that down a little bit. Okay, so I'll call this floor. DM. And this is just so I have something to like kind of catch a shadow, show that he's standing on something. And I'll give this a standard surface. Create new material, shader, standard surface, call this floor. And I'm going to give this a pretty dark color. Okay. Okay, let's save this. And just to make sure something's working, I'm going to go to my Arnold. Actually, I'm going to go to rendering as well. To rendering here. I'm going to go to Arnold. And I'm going to grab my lights, and I'm just going to just rip that off, because I'm going to be using this a lot. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that my renderer is working. This is This is a point, like, this is always terrifying. I actually haven't checked this yet. So many students, like, there are just so many technical things that can go wrong at this point that are just so far outside of the scope of Maya. It could be your graphics card could be broken. It could be your graphics drivers. It could be your version of Maya. It could be your version of Arnold. So it's always good to just do like a baseline test to make sure stuff's working before you go way down the rabbit hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an area light. This area light is super tiny. So the area light comes in at 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. So it's this tiny little LED comes in like that. So I'm going to make this thing bigger and just make sure that my guy is illuminated. So there's two ways to do you can do it in the viewport, which is very dodgy. They keep Maya, or like Autodesk keeps saying, do your look dev in the viewport, do your look dev in the viewport. And I've never, like, I've tried it and it's really just dodgy. I don't know what it is. Like, so I can show you how to do it, but I tend to do my look dev in the Arnold viewport. So if you want to do your look dev in the viewport, you can do render and you can do Arnold. And then you'll get this little kind of pop-up here. And then you can press the play button. And there you go. So, why is this dark? Because this light is incredibly, incredibly weak. So, it's at an intensity of 1 and an exposure of 0. Now, some people like to use intensity. Some people like to use exposure. It's doing the same thing. I tend to like to use exposure because exposure, when I use exposure, it's less numbers. So if I put this thing up to, like, let's say 10,000. So there's my light, and there's my character. Right? So my brain just can't deal with this many zeros. So if I want to get the same luminance using exposure, I think it would be 100. That might even be too bright. That's even too big. So let's knock this down by 10. 15 and 12. So about 13 is about the same level of light as 1,000. So why is this? Why are there two ways to control my lights? It's because actually this is a lot faster. Maybe it was just my super janky old computer that I used to have. This is actually really nice. My new laptop is beautiful. I love it. I love it so much. It was the best money I've spent in a very long time. Anyway, so yeah, why is exposure at 13 and intensity at 1,000 about the same, light output? It's because exposure is not a linear scale. So if we look at, so if I double my intensity, the intensity scale goes like this. Whoop. If I double my intensity, so I start at 0, if I go to here, I get double the light output. Exposure doesn't work like that. So every time you go up in exposure, you double the amount of light. So from going from 1 to 2, I'm not doubling my amount of light. It's 2 to the power of 2. That's how much. So that's why it gets really bright really fast. So it goes wham like that. So I get little jump, big jump here, big jump here, big jump here, big jump here. So I tend to like to use exposure because, 1, I can deal with smaller values, and 2, I can fine tune. Once I get kind of everything kind of dialed in, I can start to fine tune. Let's say my art director comes in, he's like, yo, this is great, blah, blah, blah. I want 1/3 of the light of this. So now, or let's say I want half, or 25%, because 1/3. I want 25% of this. These two things act like multipliers of one another. So I can say, okay, 0.25. I know that is exactly 25% of the light value. Take that value, so back to here, if I go back, I'm like, okay, if I go conversely, he's like, hey, bump that up by 1.65%. And you're like, okay, 1.65. I know that that value is exactly 1.65 times the amount of light that I currently have. So I use this as fine tuning and this as kind of like gross placement, you could call it. So that's how I do it. Everybody works a little bit different. So if we're looking at this, as we're looking at this, so we're seeing a couple of some phenomenon, which is very nice. So if I click this little button, basically all my computing power will be focused in to this little space right here, and it'll resolve a little bit faster. So we're seeing the reflection of this light. We're seeing ambient occlusion by default, so we're seeing darkening in these cracks. We're seeing darkening in here, and we're seeing darkening in here. So overall, it's very nice. Okay, so, and I can still select my stuff. So I'm going to take my floor, and I'm going to do what I was going to say I was going to do before. I'm going to darken this down a little bit. Cool. So I'll stop this now. So the next thing is I want to set up some nice lighting, and the easiest way to set up nice lighting is with a dome light and an HDR. So I'm gonna say, give me a dome light. Yeah, Skydome Light. So Skydome Light is an infinitely big sphere that will give you light from all directions. So if I do this now, it's gonna look really boring and really flat. It almost look like an ambient occlusion render. Getting light from all spots at the exact same intensity all the time. So it almost this is basically ambient light. It's light from everywhere. Like if you have a really overcast day, right? You can take this and you can make it a little blue. Maybe not that blue. Okay, so that would be your ambient overcast day, something like that. And then you would have an area light. That would be your sun. So let's stop this so I can position this a little bit faster. So they still haven't integrated the manipulators. So with the standard Maya lights, you can use a manipulator and point your object. The other thing that you can do is I can drive this light like a camera. So I can say panels, look through selected. So now I'm looking through that light. I want my sunlight to be coming from up here. So now I can go back to perspective view. So now that light is up there. So the further away I make this light, the stronger I'm going to have to make it. Grab that light. And so my ambient is way too much right now. It's way too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop my exposure. So I'm going to -3 maybe. Or no, that's my area. That's my area light. I want to be on my skylight. Let's do -3. Let's see. There's my exposure. So -3. Maybe -2. Yeah, it's good. And then on my area light, I'm going to do maybe 20. There we go. Maybe that's a little bit much. 16. 18. Yeah. And so since this is sunlight, we're going to get a little bit of warmth here. Also, since this is a sun, like we're getting this square, I can take and say disk. So now this is a little round. Some other things that I can do is I can bring the spread down to give it a little bit more directionality. Let's stop this guy. Let's bring the spread down. Give my, it's a little bit sharper. And what else can I do to this? I think that's good enough. Right, so very quickly we have a pretty decent, nice little render here with just two lights and two shaders. So this is a great way to show off your models. This is a great way to show off your models, especially if I just turn the sky off. Right, this looks really good. It's really good. So this is one way, and this is just kind of chugging and chugging and chugging and chugging. So this is one way to do your look development. You can do it in the viewport. Now, like I said, I just got a brand new laptop. It's really nice. It's really nice. I really like it. But maybe your viewport can't handle this. So I'm going to stop this. And I'm going to go back to viewport 2.0, so that'll go away. The other way to do this is to go into your Arnold Render view. It gives you your actual camera. It's actually looking through your camera. Let me stop this. The other great thing about working in the Arnold Render view is if you're trying to really dial something in, you can take snapshots. And so I like that. I like working in the Arnold Render view. So how I'm going to do this is, I wonder if it'll let me. Yeah. So I can dock my render view down here. So I can have my nice little, I wonder if I can dock. I used to be able, it would be great if I could dock my lights right here, or dock my lights somewhere, but apparently I can't. I'd have to make my own little menu. But, so what this does is allows me to see my camera view here. I can, and then I can move around my scene here. And if you really like this, one thing you can do is, let's turn off. Yeah, if you really like this, what I generally do is I'll make a dedicated shot cam that this guy is always looking through. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to say create camera. And I'm going to look through that camera. I'm going to call this shot cam. And so to see exactly what your camera is going to see, you need to turn on your render resolution here. Now, my render resolution is getting cut off at the top and the bottom. So if you go to your Shotcam, or any of your cameras, running out of room here, you can go to overscan. So let's see, the overscan is output settings. I think it's display settings. Overscan here. So if I hold down Control and drag this, right, all it's doing is pushing. It's not changing where my camera is. It's just giving me. This is all called overscan. It's an old television term. So I can frame this up. The other thing I like to do is I like to turn on my fields, right? So what this is a really old animation. This is back in the days when you would do traditional animation, and your director of photography would say, all right, move 3 fields to the left. So you do, all right, this guy should be over here, or move 2 fields down, or that guy should be there. So there's that. The other thing I like to do is, that's what I want. I want to turn on title safe. So just like in a Word, in a text document, or any other composition, you want a little bit of breathing room around the outside. So think of title safe. Now, I think of my title safe as my margins of my image. So I don't want anything to be popping out of that. Because I see so many students, they'll do like this, and they'll get stuff like right up to the edge, and it just feels very claustrophobic. So I'll do that. And then the other thing is I'll kind of line this guy up on a third. So kind of 1, 2, 3, 4. So title safe and third kind of gives us a nice little composition. We got a little bit of breathing room over here. We can see everything there. Now this looks claustrophobic, but when we actually render through this, so the next thing I'll do is I'll lock this off. So if I'm looking through a camera, I can say lock, and we can see all this stuff turns gray. So my center of interest, all that stuff turns gray. So I can go back to my perspective cam. And so now I have two views. I have my working view, I have my camera that's not moving, and then I'm going to render from that guy. Might have to refresh the whole scene. So abort render and update full scene. Do, 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 do. Hey Raj, what's up, man? Okay, so this is the render that I'm doing. So yeah, so this is my setup. So I'm gonna save this. Let's do this. Cancel. Wow. Save scene. So so this is my render, and I know I have like this guy here. So if I'm doing like these initial test renders, I think right now my render settings are pretty low anyway. Yeah, I'm like at like 1960 by 540. So that's super fast. That's super fast to render. Okay, so that's one way to set up your lighting. So this is kind of like a bespoke daylight. So I'll group this and I'll call. Okay, so that's one way, and I know this is a modeling stream, but to show off your models, you need decent lighting. There's no way around it. Like you just have to know a teensy bit about lighting, and you can see, and it not with not a lot of work. I've got like a pretty decent render going on down here. Maybe I can, if I go back to my Shotcam, I can stretch this guy out a bit, so I don't get that corner there. Yeah, okay, so that's daylight. The other thing that you can do, so I'm going to hide that, and if I go and press play again, I'm going to go back to I can make, there is a pre-made sun and sky. So if I do physical sky now, what this is going to do, it looks very much the same. But what this thing has now, in here, in my color, if I look at my color is matte. So if I look at this, there's this physical sky texture. And that's all it is. It's just an HDR, it's a procedurally generated sky texture. So just like you can procedurally generate bricks or scales or Perlin noise or circles or stars or whatever, this thing is just producing a sky texture. So if I render this now, like this, because I don't have enough light. Okay, so let's see. So this is basically where this. So the time's keeping, most of the time seems like the best choice to make, and shows your render. Yeah. Simplicity is, I try to keep his stuff as simple as possible. And that's not, no offense, but that's not for you guys' benefit, it's for my benefit. Because I'm not that smart, and I can't keep all that stuff straight in my head. And if something breaks, if something's simple, it's much easier to fix. A shovel is much easier to fix than like a giant like digger machine, you know? So I try to keep it simple. Okay, so I'm gonna come back to my light. I'm gonna come back to my exposure. Let's do 10. And let's stop. May have to rebuild my whole scene again. Let's make sure I'm not looking at anything weird. RGB. Dome light. Render. Update full scene. Okay, let's put this to maybe 5. Wow, that's even like 0. Okay, there we go. So I just needed to rebuild my scene. So we're getting kind of the same look here. Let's see. Let's make sure I'm looking at my RGB. There we go. RGB. So we're getting kind of the same look. We're getting this. So this line here, this kind of they call it the ground line, is what that's generating. So this is an HDR. So it's generating an HDR image. And once again, I didn't plan this, but the sun is about in the same spot. So you can control where this is, where the sun is, and kind of like the look of this environment through this texture. Right, so turbidity is, I think it's how much, it's like how much air. So if you want like a really clear day, turn your turbidity down. Ground albedo is the color of the ground. Is this painting software? No. This is Maya. So this is 3D software. Looks like a painting, but it's 3D software. It's what we're rendering. So your elevation is this way, right, and your azimuth is that way, right? So it's basically polar coordinates, right? So you have an elevation, and then you rotate around where that thing is going to be. So if I put my elevation at 90, it's basically high noon. Around. So if you want like a western, spaghetti western, put stuff at high noon. And then the other thing about lighting is the bigger your light, the softer your shadows. So if I want this to look like a western, like high noon, right? Like sun's beating down on the sky, super clear day, no clouds, middle of the desert, no water, super hot. I'm gonna make this sun like 0.1, like super. I'll have to up my exposure. So it's all a big balancing act. You can have your sky tint and your sun tint. So it seems really complicated, but it's really not. It's just positioning. This is positioning your sun and giving it intensity. So once again, if I want to double or 3. So basically, it's like super hot day now out in the middle of the desert. Once again, a multiplier for your. So this now has 3 multipliers. It has an intensity multiplier on the texture. It's got an intensity multiplier on the actual object. So this application is called Maya. It's the industry standard for modeling, texturing, rigging, animation, visual effects, the whole 9 yards. We teach it here at CG Spectrum if you want to learn more about it. Yeah, so that's way number 2. So this is kind of hand rolled. This is prepackaged for you and served up nicely. The last way to do this is with your own HDRI texture. So I'm going to group this. I'm going to call this Physical Sky. Let's stop. Let's stop. Sky. Cool. So we'll hide this one as well, and then we'll go back to darkness. Now, the last one is also with a Skydome Light. And what we're going to do is we're going to map an image. So the same way that we mapped an image to that procedural image to our color, we can map our own HDRI. Now, what is an HDRI image? This is a source of much confusion to my students. And I don't really have time to get into it now, but what an HDRI is it's a special image format where the color values can go above 1. Conversely, they can go below 0, but generally you don't do that. So they can go above 1. So basically, HDRI holds more information than a standard image. So it allows us to capture lighting information. Maybe I'll do a more in-depth lesson on what that is, but for now, just know that we can use HDRI images for light. So I'm going to click this little mapping button here, and I'm going to grab myself a file, and I'm going to go and grab, and I've already downloaded 2 HDRIs. So there's this one, which is kind of like a, I think it's like an aerodynamics lab, and this one, which is a studio. So let's use the studio. And we'll wait for this to come in, and it may have to convert. Ah, there it is. So if I go back to my perspective camera, yeah, where to start? Oh man, that's a hard one. Just start, like, go to cgspectrum.com. We have some starter content that you can look at. If you can ask around, just, start. That's the best thing. What you're doing right now is going out, educating yourself, looking for stuff. That's the best thing you can do. That's the best place to start. You can go. This is, I think, maybe like the 8th or 9th stream that I've been working on this guy. You can go all the way back to the beginning of my stream and watch me build this guy almost from scratch. So go check those out. Check out the rest of the CG Spectrum stream, and you can email our people and get yourself started. Yeah. So we have intro classes where we are teaching you from absolute nothing. Our 3D modeling certificate starts you from nothing, and by the end you have a nice little character that you can show off and have in your portfolio. Okay, so we can see that this is my, it's kind of weird. It's like I'm in a room now. But really what I wanted is I really like these 2 big long lights. Because what that's going to do is it's going to give me like kind of these really nice highlights. And I kind of want them, right now they're running perpendicular to my little character. I want them to run long ways, because I want like these lights to run along. I want them to be almost right on top. Now, I'm not really worried about what this environment looks like. I'm really just worried about just these 2 lights here. I want them, because I'm trying to do like kind of like car lighting. And car lights, they usually have 2 big long strips of lights at the top. If you're enrolling in the intro courses, there are no requirements needed at all. Now, if you're going to try to enroll into the advanced courses, you should probably have, obviously because they're called advanced, you should probably have some CG background already. Okay, so I've rotated this guy in as close as I can get it, and let's do render, update full scene. And we'll see what this gives us. Should have definitely saved this before. So yeah, save early, save early. I'm going to save this again. Because at this point, like when you're starting to do like calculations and lighting and things, Maya will crash. It's not a matter of when. It's if. It's a matter of when. Right. So yeah, that's what I wanted. So now I'm getting like kind of like these nice long strips along the body. Now, mind you, this is not my final render. I'm just doing this so that I can get a nice look, right? Because I am eventually going to send this guy off to Substance Painter and do like all kinds of detail. But right now, I just want to get I want to be able to show my supervisor and be like, hey, what do you think of this? This is this in a couple different lighting situations. How do you feel about this? And they can be like, well, move this, move that, move that, move this. Okay. So that's the HDRI setup. So what we can do is we can now, so let me stop this and save it. let's see what the other one looks like. So that was the studio. Let's go look at workshop. So this one's obviously going to be much, much warmer overall. Let that cook for a minute. It's got to convert this HDR into its own software, into its own image format. So it'll take a minute. Much warmer than the other one, but we're getting more of these reflections in general. So I don't really want to use this one because this is going to it's got too much color in it. I feel like it's got a little bit too much color in it. It's going to change the my overall colors that I'm going to be putting on this guy in general. So this one's got a little bit too much character. So we'll group this. Stop this, and we'll group this, and we'll call this HDR. So the great thing about this setup is you can do, you could have 3 or 4 different renders, and because you've locked down this Shotcam, they'll all look exactly the same. So you can say, so basically you're visually eliminating variables, like you're eliminating camera movement and all this stuff. So it's like it looks like this and this, this and this, this and this, this and this, this and this and this and this. So very nice. So I'm actually going to go back to, I think the fastest one that rendered was just my initial daylight calculation. The best look, just for looking at this guy. Okay. All right. So now let's start to bring in some materials, shall we? So the first thing I think I'm going to work on is just like the biggest part, right? The biggest swatches. So I'm thinking that I kind of want to make a, let's see, maybe. I know I want this. We'll say, and this can all be changed later. Let's say this guy, that guy, and these. Let's say these are all going to be that red color. No, I think maybe this will be the red color. Maybe these guys. So basically we have patches of red in here. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to say assign new material. And I'm going to say shader. And standard surface. We're going to call this main red SDR. Okay, so let's just make sure that that's assigned. Cool, great, that's assigned. Now, now if I just do this in grayscale, it kind of gives me an idea of how these colors are going to break up. So actually I kind of like this. It's looking good. I like how this is going to be broken up. Now, let's go back to our how long does it take to make a figure like this blue on the top window? I don't understand. Can you rephrase the question, please? So generally, if I come over here and I grab my reference, I see so many students. They're like, okay, great. This stuff is red. So this is red. This is red. This is red. And they grow and they grab this shader and they're like, all right, red, done. And you're like, oh no, don't do that. Don't do that. Grab your reference. That's why we're taking reference, right? So here's a little trick that you can do in Maya. So one, if I just single click this, I get a color picker. So I can actually just pick this color. So if we look at this, this is what's amazing. Like, you would think that this is very red, right? If I actually pick this color, look how dark this actually is. It's not even red. It's really maroon, right? Our eyes trick us. Our brain tricks us into thinking that this is red because it's like, okay, well, it's the reddest thing around, so it's red. Apples aren't red. They're actually like greenish color, right? Okay, so that's yeah, I like this. Kind of looks like a little, I don't know what he looks like. But I picked from like the darkest part. That's what some people are saying. I was like, oh, you picked the darkest part. Here's the other trick that you can do. So I'm gonna make, let's find one that has, so I think this one has a good mixture. So there's some really dark parts here, there's some really bright parts here, and then there's some middle of the road parts here. If I double click the figuring software on the top one, you can move around. How long would it take for you that to create? Okay, so you mean the model. So I was working on this model on and off. I wasn't dedicated working on this. I've done most of it in this stream. So I've been working on it probably, let's see, for about a month. So this is about, I would say like 12 hours of work up until now to make this little guy. Yeah. So it's not instant. Not instant at all. Okay. So, yeah. So if I double click on this, I get like this gigantic window, which I wish this was more publicized. This is a huge window, right? And you get a spectrum. You can load an image into this. You can do this thing called blend. And I've already done this. So if I select, I can select a really bright part. I can select a middle bright part. I can select a really dark part, like over here. And I can select a super, super duper dark part. So maybe there. That's not super dark. And even if I do select this, I can just bring its value. So let's bring its value down. Okay. So now I can do like a nice little blend. I can find the middle of the road of all these colors. So I can put that here. But even then, even sampling from all those different parts, look where my saturation is being pegged at. It's not way up here. It's like 75%, and my value is like 0.4. Even at my brightest spot, or even at my darkest, my saturation is 7.3. This is 8.2. It never gets up to 1. As I move around this, like, look at this. This never goes beyond here. So this is really important when you're choosing colors. Don't go ham. Don't go all the way up here. Never go. I try to not go above 2/3 of this thing, right? And this is a really, really saturated object, right? This is man-made red metal. It's supposed to be like danger, danger. Don't come around this thing, it'll fall on you and crush your head, right? So, yeah. The other cool thing that this illuminates is the brighter something becomes. The more the value goes up, the saturation goes down. So watch this. If I go over here, my saturation goes down. If I go down here, watch what happens. Whoop! That's a beautiful thing about color. Almost all colors in the real world work like this. High value, low saturation. Low value, high saturation. So I'm going to put this thing roughly in the middle. Like right about there. Done. So that's my red. Now the next thing I want to look at is for this. So let's run this and see what we get. Okay. Right? So I'm looking here, I'm looking there, I'm looking here, I'm looking there. Maybe this needs to be a little bit more saturated. So I'm starting from, a place of saliency. And start this around until I get close to what I want. That's feeling a little bit closer. This is This is feeling a little bit closer. Maybe I can push a little bit of saturation into this. And so this is where reference comes in. Like having this right. Sabrina, would you probably be a little bit longer? I don't think I could do. Yes, it would be definitely longer. I've been doing this for, almost 13, 14 years now. So I know some tricks. In general, like, so in our certificate class, you get 6 weeks to do a character, not as complicated as this, but it's a little floating robot. So you have 6 weeks to do it, and most students do a very, very, very good job of getting that done. Hey Raj, what's up, man? How you doing? Good to see you. Okay, so I'm going to dial this in a little bit more saturation, and I'm going to call this good. Yeah. So the next thing I want to look at is my roughness. So this thing's roughness is actually, it's pretty low. It's got some bump to it, but I'm not really worried about that. Like I said, I'm worried about... oh, thanks, man. Raj is another mentor here at CG Spectrum, showing some love on the stream. So this thing is quite smooth. Like, we're getting this what would you call it? Perturbation, I guess. I've just made that word up. It's perturbing the highlight, but in general, it's quite smooth. So back, push this saturation. Oh, too far. Yeah, there we go. Why does it keep going back? There we go. So pull this saturation down just a smidge. There we go. Yeah, this is Arnold. Okay, so this is still a little bit off, but I'll play with this offline. Doing this and streaming is killing my my machine. Okay, so I have my colors. Next thing is my roughness, right? So that's down in my specular, and that is going to be in my roughness. So right now it's actually really smooth. This is like 0.2 is really, really smooth. So I'm going to actually bump this up just a little bit to 0.3. This little space right here. Okay, so I'm liking this. This is looking good. This is looking really good. Okay, it's feeling good. So I'm gonna stop this. So the next thing I think I'm gonna work on is where I want my secondary color, my big secondary color to be, because this paint and this paint are very, very similar. So I can just kind of change this color and get to get pretty close. Right now I'm using my CPU. I think I might try to switch over to the Arnold GPU. Yeah, let's try it. Let's see what happens. So there's two ways to render. You can render on your central processing unit, which like renderers like Mantra, Arnold, V-Ray, and RenderMan use your GPU. Now there are some more and more you're getting some GPU acceleration in your CPU, and they're like kind of yeah, yes, thank you. Because so Arnold has a purely or pseudo purely GPU renderer. It just came out. I think they're saying it's ready for prime time now. So we'll see. Let's see. Let me look at the rest of this. Ooh, I like this. I'm liking where this is going. This looks really cool. I'm happy where that is. So to do that, venturing into unknown territories here, I'm gonna click on my render settings. I'm gonna go to Arnold Render. Actually, it's System, and then I'm gonna switch over to GPU. Now, when I switch over to GPU, if I go to my auto rendered, all this stuff goes away. Like, these are all my tuning controls. So I can basically just turn this up to like 50, right? Because that's how GPU renders work. You just let it rip, and then you just wait. And you just wait till it's good enough, and then you stop it. So, let's see what this gives us. I'll watch my computer explode in front of me on live stream. Let me make sure that the rest of this is worked out. I do want to render from my Shotcam. I'll go ahead and do that now. All right. So let's just pull this off to the side, and we'll pull this back out, and we'll let this rip. So GPU, you do, so here it's saying here it's rendering with the GPU, and it started, and boom, it's gone off. So it looks like it's pulling in my other lighting. I don't know why I'm seeing this guy back here. So let me stop this, and I'm just going to, I don't even want Arnold to even try to load this stuff, because I want speed right now. Yeah, and that's pretty, wow, that's really fast. That's really nice. Go RTX cores. Yeah, I do have I have a RTX Quattro, which is, this is amazing. Wow. Unlimited power. No. Okay. All right, moving on. Good call, Raj. Good call, Raj. Cool. I'm liking this. Yeah. This looks really good. So the specular calculation I'm seeing is a wee bit different, but for this, for the speed gain I'm getting is great. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to duplicate this red material, and I'm going to use it for my yellow material. So I'm going to go to my Hypershade. Couldn't do it without you, baby. All right, so I have my red material should be in here somewhere else. I don't need this, and I don't need this. And I actually don't need that, or that. Let's see. There's my main red material. So I'm just going to click this guy. I'm going to say Edit, Duplicate. So now I have this red material. I should have red material 1 SDR. So I'm going to call this yellow. Main yellow. Here's the great thing about this. This is what I love about when you really, really learn about color. So let me go back and grab. When you really learn about color, so I love everything else. I love everything else about this material right now, except for my color. Now, most people think in red, green, and blue. I tend to think as an artist, you should start thinking in hue, saturation, and value. Right? I like my saturation of this. I like my value of this. I just want to change the color, and that's what hue is. So I can just take this and rip it over to the side, and I'll get this. So let's assign this to some objects, right? So I think, what do I want to be yellow? I think I want these guys to be yellow. I think I want this to be yellow. I think I said I was gonna make these guys like the toes rubber, because they're probably gonna have to squidge around. This guy's probably gonna have to be rubber. Let's make the claws yellow as well. And actually, no, I want those to be bare metal. Because the yellow is just pretty much an accent. This is gonna be rubber. Let's do that in yellow. Maybe we'll do these guys in yellow. So basically everything on the periphery of a red is gonna be yellow. Yeah, so I'm gonna right click, say assign existing material, yellow SDR. Match his name. So go back to Hypershade. If that doesn't work, there's 10,000 ways to skin a cat. I don't know why that's a saying. So I'm going to say right click and I say assign material to selection. Boom. There we go. So yeah, I'm really liking this. This is nice. This is really nice. It's looking a little baby poo green right now. So let's go back and let's grab our yellow and see what we can do about our colors. Let's just try to grab a mid. So let's go and let's do that four corner thing again so we can blend this together and just pick a color. So I'm gonna double click and I'm gonna grab a, let's do bright spot, medium spot, really dark spot, and then a darkest spot I can find. Okay. So it's coming out a little bit bronzed in here. So let's kind of shift our value up a little bit. Maybe down a little bit. Give a little bit more saturation. Yellows are really difficult to get just right because they're sandwiched between red, which is an incredibly psychological color, and green, which is yellow is sandwiched between danger and sickness, basically on the color wheel. So it's really difficult to get just right. Like even this, like this on its own is very, very green. Let's see what's over here. So that is very orange. Saturation is really, really high. Oh, that's why I accidentally turned off color management. So I can go round and round on picking colors all day long. All day long. I love picking colors. Mostly because I'm not fantastic at it. So it takes me a little bit longer, but I really enjoy doing it. Okay. I'm thinking that's pretty close. It's pretty close. We might shift this guy just a little bit towards the greenish spectrum. Maybe that's too green. And maybe bring the saturation down. Get my value up. There it is. There it is. That's what I want. That's what I want right there. Yeah, so what do? I bring my saturation up. Down. I don't know why that's flopping back to it. It's reverting back to the color it was before, which is really annoying. Okay, there we go. I like that. Nice. So let's look at this whole thing. Yeah, I've been playing around with it. Apparently, it's amazing. So Rajbar is asking about ACES workflow. So basically, what we're working in now is a linear workflow. Like all the colors that are coming into Maya are being basically taken out of RGB land, and then made to be made linear. I'll probably do a whole series on digital color. But what ACES does is it gives us a much bigger palette of colors to work with, and it integrates into real world footage much better. It's as far as computer graphics goes, it is brand spanking new. Like it just came out maybe like, I don't even know, but it's very new. So Maya, it's in just like any new technology, it's on the periphery, so it takes a little bit of work to set it up, right? It takes a little bit of like elbow grease and flipping knobs and turning things. I think in the future, like maybe in the next like year or so, maybe 2 years, it'll become very, very much easier to set up an ASUS workflow overall. Okay. All right, so that's our yellow stuff. Sorry, so let's now do our rubber bits. Okay. So what do I want to be rubber? And maybe I want this to be rubber because this feels like a gasket. Like this is glass, and it would kind of like squeak into that. So I think I'm gonna make this rubber. So I'm gonna make all my gaskets rubber. So this stuff is all gonna be rubber. That's gonna be flexible, so that's gonna be rubber. For now, yeah, I'm gonna make the tubes rubber. I can always overwrite that stuff later. Yeah, and then these clearly are going to be rubber. I think this is going to be rubber as well. I think all this stuff is just going to be bare metal. Yeah, all that stuff's going to be bare metal. This is definitely going to be rubberized. This stuff will also be rubberized. So all the flexible points, right? And just by virtue of just the way that things kind of work out, like anything that could flex or move is going to be rubber. So I'm going to do the same thing. Right click. Say apply new material. And I'm going to do shader, AI standard surface. Now, this is a good time to save. It's a good time to save. So this is a good time to talk about presets. So Arnold ships with a bunch of presets, and you can get to them up here. If you see this little star, then that means that there are presets. So I'm gonna click this, and I think there's a rubber in here. So let's see. We got balloon, blood, brush metal, bubble, car paint, clay, clear water, jade, milk, plastic, rubber. Here we go. So I'm just gonna say replace. Bam. So I want this rubber. So right now everything is kind of like the same saturation. So he's really bright. So I need something to balance this out, right? So I want this rubber to be quite dark. Like I want it to be basically black, like this. So I'm gonna bring this way down. Now I'm not gonna go all the way to black, but I'm gonna go pretty dark. And then my roughness is pretty high. This actually feels kind of shiny, so let's bring that down just a bit. So you get a little bit of shine in here. And actually, I like this for those tubes. I might make those tubes like that. So I might make the tubes in here because they're so dark. Right, they're so dark, they're so kind of embedded in here that I might need to lighten them up. But that's working quite well. Okay. So now we can get to kind of our raw metals. So raw metals are going to be kind of like this type of stuff. Now this guy looks kind of Fisher Pricey right now because like it's just flat color, right? I'm just like, once again, I'm working with large swaths of color, big blocks, so I can see overall, does this thing look balanced? And I'm thinking it does right now. It's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this. All right, so let's go with let's start to think about some raw metal. Now I think I'm gonna make these red as well because I'm thinking I'm gonna put like big decals on these, like this type of stuff. So that'll kind of break up that big kind of redness there. So I'm gonna apply I'm gonna apply the red to that as well. And this is kind of just like how I work through things. I sit at my desk and talk to myself. So yeah. Okay, so let's start to make some metal. So the reason I think in these, like if we look at this, like I like this little arm piece here, and like this little curved piece here, and this stuff. I feel like that really kind of talks to these parts in here. And just kind of like from a manufacturing standpoint, these things are going to be rubbing around. They're going to be knocking against stuff, right? It's kind of pointless to paint these things. And in fact, I'll probably have a lot of fun on these parts, because if this is painted, this is all going to be worn and chipped and beat up where this thing has been sliding around on it. So I may even go ahead and just make all this part raw metal. If that stuff is all sliding against itself, then why not just go ahead and make it all metal? And the face as well. I think I'm going to have these vents be metal, because there's going to be, if there's a vent somewhere, that means there's probably air moving out of it, right? That air probably has moisture in it. So I could make these a little rusty, right? Put a little patina on them, but they're still going to be, at their core, they'll probably be some sort of raw metal. So many pieces in that claw. That claw is pretty much straight out of ZBrush. Same thing with these bolts. I'll have a lot of fun putting some scuffs and scratches around, like where they, like if you had like an impact drill and you like and you like put it in, you'd have like that ring, that scraped up ring. And actually, you know what? I'm going to make this metal as well. So like these are like if these are rubber, right? They would kind of come in and they would like lip up underneath that and like kind of hook onto it like that. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. And actually, now that I think about it, these will be metal too. I feel like I have too much darkness overall. I need something to catch light. Okay, so right click, assign new material, shader, AI standard surface, and then I'm gonna go back to my presets. I'm gonna say, let's see what we got here. Brush metal, replace, see what we get. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it does look like a Ratchet and Clank villain because, let me get the book. It's designed by a company called Creature Box, and those two guys are the same guys that did the original Ratchet and Clank, designs. And they did a lot of the villains as well. So, you are spot on. Okay, so let's actually look at this this metal. So we'll call this is going to be raw metal. So why is it black in the viewport, but silvery in my render down here? That is because if we look at my shading, so my color, so this is my metalness is at 1, right? So this is what's very strange about physically based rendering. There are two types of materials in the world according to physically based rendering. There's things that are metal, and there are things that are not metal. So this metalness slider should be like a toggle. I mean, you can slide it, but it's usually on or off. It's usually 0 or 1. If I were to take this and move it back to 0, you'll see that this will look more like plastic than metal. Because the biggest thing about metals is where the color in their reflection comes from. Actually, for metals, most of their quote-unquote color is just reflection. So if I wanted to make this guy, so right now he's very, so if I put this all the way up to white, I'm basically going to get chrome, like super reflective chrome. But never go to white, or try to not to go to white. You always want to come down a little bit. So if I wanted to make this like gold or brass, I would grab this color, and now he's gold or brass. And actually, I kind of like that. like this is like the bonus material. he's leveled up. I'm gonna go back to the. I'm gonna keep that gray. The other thing is roughness, right? So this roughness, he's about 0.25, it's about quarter roughness. If I start to bring this down, he's going to start to get more and more mirrored. Now, with metals, a lot of their character comes from what they're reflecting. So right now, he's just in this big gray void, and there's really nothing for him to reflect. If I had an HDR out here, then he would have something to reflect. So I'm just going to leave this at about 0.25. That metal is actually pretty rough. So, yeah, I'm liking, like that. That's looking really nice. I like that. Maybe a little bit too far. So I think I'm going to apply that to some of these parts, these middle parts as well. Like I said, not getting super detailed, just laying down base color. Like if you've ever looked at, you know, when comic book artists, when they do their coloring, right? What do they do first? They do their flats first. They flat out everything, and then they go in and start to do their highlights and everything. So this is what this is. This is basically flatting a render. Just putting flat color on everything. So I want to make sure that everything has a shader hooked up to it. A shader that describes something. And if you're in a, would you turn this into a game asset in the future? I could possibly turn this into a game. I may try to actually render my final production renders in Unreal Engine. But like I said, my background is in film and television and animation, so that will take me a little bit of experimentation. I'm going to grab these bolts as well. These bolts should definitely be raw metal. Looking pretty nice. So I could have a couple different types of metal. So I could, once again, like I did with the red and the yellow, I could duplicate this raw metal shader and like make a little bit darker one, a little bit lighter one. So that should be pretty cool. All right, let's save this bad boy. Okay, let's move on to our dome. This one's pretty special because we need to be able to see through this thing. And I'm probably just going to use, now that we kind of know our way around the shaders, I'm going to use the presets for the rest of the stream. We've got about a half an hour left. I want to get this whole thing flatted by the end of the day today. So same thing, assign new material, shader, AI standard surface. We'll call this glass. And we'll take and let's do presets, and there should be a glass here somewhere. Glass, replace. so I'm getting some glass here. Let me go ahead and I'm going to focus here. Because glass is incredibly tricky to pull off. Especially when you don't have anything to reflect. So at this point, with my daylight setting, maybe I'll come in and I'll bring in an HDRI into this now. Because we're getting to the point where I'm getting into these metals. I'm starting to get into glass. I really need something to reflect. Because right now, this is just reflecting a gray, even void. Like, even if you look at my reference over here, I'm taking a picture through this glass. Like, that's what's signaling that this is glass. It's not that it's actually glass and you can't see any yellow glass. Okay, all right, cool. We can do that. We can do yellow glass. So I need a HDRI in here. So I'm gonna pull that in now. So I'm gonna say color, and I'm gonna do file, and then I'm gonna go get. Let's see. Should I do the? Let's do the room. Let's see. Photo studio. So let's do render, update full scene, and render. So it takes a little bit longer, but immediately now we're getting these reflections in here. So let's turn off my crop. So now we're starting to get these reflections in here, so we can actually see what the glass is doing. And also we're getting a little bit more reflection off of our metal bits as well. So we had a request for yellow glass. So we can do, so let's see, that would be in transmission here. So our specular has a weight of 1, and as you can see, I've made this glass. I pretty much turned my metalness down to 1. I've turned my base color down to 0. So this has no base color attached to it. It's all coming from this transmission. So my color, I can do as, let's do as yellow. So we'll get like this. Ooh, that's actually really cool. Good suggestion. Really good suggestion. So maybe I don't want it that yellow. Let's take my saturation down a little bit. Just want a hint. Foggy hint of yellow. Now, there is one thing to be said. If you look at the way that I built this guy, right? You can see that if you go back to the earlier streams, I gave this a thickness, right? There's a thickness. There's an actual thickness here. So light has to hit this surface, move through here. All right, Raj, man. Thanks for coming by, and thanks for suggesting the GPU render, man. That really enhanced the experience today. Fantastic. So this, right, I have to have a thickness here, right? Because if the light ray were to hit this, go all the way through here and hit this, it would treat this whole dome like one solid piece of glass. So you would get lots of distortion in here. So anytime you want to have, you need thickness to your glass. And that idea of putting the yellow on there, that was great. This is why I do these streams. They're fantastic. They're really, really fun. Okay, so that's my glass. I can do a little bit of scatter if I want it to be kind of foggy. So that kind of makes it foggy, but the more I scatter this, the longer it's going to take. So I'm going to leave my scatter at 0. So we'll just have this be kind of like perfect glass. My roughness is at 0. I don't want that, so I want just a little bit of roughness in here. Just so it's not perfectly clear. with the electric effect inside. It looked really cool. Imagine the antennas communicating with them. Oh yeah, that could be cool. We could do that. Yeah, we could definitely do that. Maybe that's a little bit too far on the roughness. Like 0.1. Yeah, that's feeling good. And for these little plates, I'll just do. I think I'll just do one yellow and one that's red. I think I'll make the big one red and the little one yellow. So I'm just gonna stop this real quick. I need to go and find those inside Cortex. There they are. So I'm pretty much done with my lighting, or not done, but I don't really need that lighting anymore. Let's look at plate. So yeah, this one I'm gonna use existing materials, say yellow, and this one will be red. This is why it's really important to name your shaders as you go along. Oh yeah. That's dope. He looks like, he almost looks like a Mexican wrestler now. I'm really liking this. Like, he looks like a luchador. Okay, sweet, awesome, possum. Okay, moving along. I think we'll probably get through all of the material assignments today. I need to figure out what I want to do with these pistons. What color I want those, because these still don't have anything. So if that's all, I think if that's all metal around there, I might put the yellow in there. This is metal and this is metal. Well, we'll try one with the yellow and one with the red, but we'll get to that later. That's pretty easy. That's easy. So for the brain, now the brain. So for this, I'm going to save again. For this, I'm just going to hide my little guy so I can just see all that. So for my brain, I want my brain to look really gooey, and that's where subsurface scattering comes in. Subsurface scattering is difficult. It's a very, very render intensive thing, so that's why I want to use it exactly where I want to use it. So I'm going to use it on this brain because I want this to look really squishy, because right now it just looks like hard plastic. So once again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say right click, new material, shader, AI standard surface, call this brain shader. And so let's look at our presets, and I think there is a skin. Yeah, I'm going to use the skin, see what that gives me. So if we look, our transmission is turned to 0. Our base weight is at 0. Our specular is at 1. And now what we're going to be getting most of our color from is this subsurface. Our subsurface is at 1 here. So let's see what we get. So I'm going to have to turn up crank up my camera samples a lot. But that's what we get. Like, that already looks pretty fleshy. So let's see. Let's look at, anytime you have this little hamburger thing here, you have more presets. So apple, chicken, ketchup, marble, potato. Let's do skin 2. It's still a little light for my taste. I want this to be pretty red. So let's bring up my saturation. Let's bring down my value. And let's shift this into a red color. Oh yeah. That's exactly what I want. So maybe it's a little bit too saturated. So maybe bring that down a little bit. So yeah, so this is really simple subsurface scattering, just to get a look at what this guy's gonna look like. So that's feeling pretty good. I'm liking that. It's going to take a while for that to resolve, but that's okay. Okay, moving along. So let's look at these wires. So a couple people had been talking about wanting these wires to have some sort of electricity or something. So we can do that. We can do that here, just as an initial look. So I'm going to assign a new texture to these as well. So we're going to call, let's say, let's see. Oh yeah, new material, shader, AI standard surface. And so for this one, I'm going to turn on. So for this glowy materials, I don't really need any base weight. I don't need to calculate anything specular. I'm going to call this wires electric. SDR. Right. I don't need any base color. I don't need a specular weight. I don't need transmission. I don't need subsurface. I need emission. So I'm going to take my emission weight and turn that all the way up. See what that does. So now these guys kind of look like they're glowing. Now, I don't really have... The thing that really makes stuff look like it's glowing is bloom. Like that little haze that goes around objects that are really bright. I'm not going to get into that right now, but... The point of things that glow is they don't really have any color, and they don't really have anything that's specular about them. They're just light. Like if you look at a super hot white light, it doesn't have any specular, and its color is coming from the color that's being spat out. Now I don't want this to be super bright white. Let's go with like maybe a cool. I don't know if that works with the color scheme. Let's go with let's keep this warm. This whole character is very, very warm. Except for the metal. The metal's metal's a pretty cool color. So let's keep that at, let's do maybe like a deep, like incandescent bulb look. So this is, once again, I'm maxed out on my saturation and my value. Don't want to do that. So if my saturation's high, no, if my value is high, my saturation needs to be low. Or vice versa. So if I'm going to bring down my value, I can bring up my saturation. So I'm going for like that incandescent orange of a light bulb. The other thing about this is I can take this weight and I can go to like 5. And these will be like super bright. So now they really look like they're glowing. So you don't have to stop at 1. You can go up to 5. So let's try, let's go bonkers. Let's go 10. Yeah. So let's bring back our glass. It's going to be under display, show last hidden. Yeah, that looks really nice. It's like this bright, super bright glowing. This is going to take forever to resolve, but when it does, it's going to look really cool. Okay. So that's looking good. So what else do we have to do? All right. Oh, we have to do our eyes. So for our eyes here, I think I'll do... So the eyes are going to have actually 2 materials on them. There's going to be one on the inside here and one on the outside. So for now, I'll just give them their own kind of like eye shader, because those will be kind of their own thing. So let's do new material, shader. Surface, call this eye shader. Oh no, that's subsurface. So I don't want these. Maybe I do want these. I want these to glow a little bit. So I'm gonna do kind of a half and half. So this is gonna be, and so the cool thing about this is once you worked with your reference a little bit, it saves all these little colors here. Yeah, so that's good. Maybe a little bit darker. Because what I want this to be dark because I'm gonna make my eyeballs. I'm gonna make them glow red. So these guys are going to glow red. So I'll leave everything as it is, and I'll take my emission, put that up to 1, and give myself red. And so remember, high value, low saturation. Yeah, I'm really liking where this is going. Save this. All right. So the last thing I'm going to do is just chuck some, yeah, I think some color, I think we could use some color in through here on those pistons. So what I'll do is I just want to see what I have left that I haven't assigned something to. So this is where that base shader that I made is going to come in handy. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to go, let's see. So Harbor Shade. View. Let's see. Let's reset. I've busted my reset current workspace. There we go. So I want to orange in the eyes to balance out the red. I could do that. Because right now I'm just I'm not trying to get to a final look right now. I'm just laying down stuff. I can always go back in offline and rebuild and change colors. I'm really just trying to get an overall look right now. Where? There we go. Browser. There it is. Let's put that back. Okay. Let's see. So I want to see which one's which here. So this is my select objects with the material. That's my eye shader. So here I'm going to call this eye shader. Don't know why that didn't take SDR. This one is right click, select objects. That's my rubber. And main red, main yellow. Let's see. Raw metal. Standard surface. Select objects with material. Let's see. Select that guy. My base SDR. Where are you? There we go. Base SDR. Select objects. So what do I have left that has that base SDR? It's this stuff. Okay. So And this is a good way to just check and see what you haven't assigned to stuff. So let's see. All this stuff should be my metal shader, my raw metal shader. So I'm going to do that. Right click, assign material selection. Select my base SDR again, select objects with material, isolate that. So these guys are kind of up inside of this guy. So I'm just going to make them, I'll probably give them, I'll leave them at the base. So I think I'm going to make these little bracket parts, I'll make those red. No, I'll make these yellow, because black and yellow tends to go together very nicely. So I want to keep, and the thing is, I'm keeping my materials to a minimum, right? Because if you, oh, thanks for the stream, Robin. Come on back next week. We'll be continuing this. I think I'm almost done. Oh yeah, we got about 4 minutes left. So I will finish the rest of this assignment offline, and you can check it out. We'll start next week, and so we'll continue this next week. So yeah, so what did we do today? We did a lot. We did a lot today. So we got this whole character, not the whole character, but most of the character, with our start of our look development. So let's go back in and let's look at Arnold, and we'll take one final view. So that's what we got so far. This is where we're at right now, right? So yeah, super productive stream. Super happy with where this is going. It's only going to get better because, like, you know, this is just flat materials right now, right? As soon as we start to add in bumps and variation in reflections and things like that, it's really, really going to come alive. But the thing is, if it doesn't look good here, no matter how much detail or decals or scratches or dings that you put on this thing is going to make it look good. Okay? So this is what we're doing. Thank you, all of you, so much for coming in and watching and hanging in there. I'll be back next week. Now, I will be on break from the 20th of December to the 2nd of July. So if you don't see me before then, have a happy holidays and a fantastic new year. Remember, cspectrum.com/3D modeling for all your modeling needs. I'm Bryan Bentley, and thank you so much. Good night.